you for joining us for Real Estate Now. I am Keith Pitsch.
And I am Stacy Chevalier.
Stacy, how are you today?
I'm great. Great day.
Great day.
Was that believable?
That was forced. I'm going to say it was a little bit forced. So it's one of those fun days in the mortgage world again. So here we go. Just a quick update. We were trying to get away from talking about it, but we still have to talk about it. Rates are in this weird flux, going up, going down. And we have some very interesting job news coming out. And yesterday was the announcement that they actually redid the numbers for Q2. And now it's showing that Q2 GDP is now negative. So now we have 2 quarters back-to-back negative GDP growth. What does that mean? Are we in a recession? Are we not? Are we just being ignorant? What kind of things are out there? So long story short, the rate environment when it comes to mortgages, it's still on the higher side than it was 2 years ago. And we were just spoiled for a very long time. So for all of you out there that went out and got your mortgages below 3.5%, be grateful every night at dinner when you say your gratitudes or when you get up in the morning. Just be grateful.
Thank you for my interest rate.
Yeah, thank you for my interest rate. I love it. I love paying only 3.5%. But I think what we're doing, Stacy, is just finding the new normal in the 5s.
Yeah. And it feels like we're almost finding that high point. Feels like I don't feel like we're at risk of them continuing to increase at the fast climb that we were, but we'll see. Yeah. I guess we could start playing do we think rates are going to go up or down?
Up or down? Like, oh, hey, let me get on the elevator. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm going to say this to that. Turbulent summertime, and then once we get into fall, I think you may see them start tick down. So I'm just going to say through the rest of the summer, go enjoy the sunshine and paying a little bit higher interest rate. But I will say this, the buyers that I'm talking to right now, Stacy, they've acclimated. They've come to market. They are real about where we are today and have adjusted their purchase price accordingly. And I am a firm believer that we're going to start taking off again here in another couple months. So just get ready for it. That's my fortune telling.
I like it. I think rates are still good, right? If you look at the historical line, I think that we are starting to level off. I don't know about rates going down, but I think they're going to kind of stay where they're at for a while, which is what we need. So we will see.
Yeah. Just stability, make the new normal out of it. So, well, I got to tell you, Stacy, I am like over the moon excited about today's show because, I was thinking back on the almost 2 years of Real Estate Now that we've done. And we've had real estate agents come in and talk about real estate investing. We've had mortgage people come about and talk about real estate investing. Yeah. But we've never had somebody that was in the trenches, who was not in the real estate world whatsoever, come and share their story with us. So today I'm super excited to introduce my friend that I've known for the last 2.5, 3 years. I got to know Dion. God, I keep hitting my mic. I got to know Dion right before COVID happened. And then we all locked down and got to know each other better on video. So today's guest is Dion McNeeley, and he is one of my favorite investors because he was a real life 9-to-5, actually like 60 hours a week guy, and said, I'm going to go invest in real estate. And he just did it. So joining us today on Real Estate Now is Dion. Dion, welcome to the show.
Howdy.
Welcome.
Keith, Stacy, I'm super excited to be here. I appreciate the invite. It's kind of weird because you pointed out I'm not in the real estate world. I'm not an agent. I'm not a lender. I've not worked in anything. I joined things like the Seattle Investors Club so that I can actually interact with people like you and learn all the things I have in the last couple of years from you, Keith. So it's actually kind of cool for me to be here to share this with you.
Man, watching your growth. So Seattle Investors Club, pre-COVID, we always got together once a week. It was a little mastermind group. Anybody from any walk of life could come down to the Angelos down in Burien and, pose questions, ask whatever was on their plate at that time. When it came to real estate, they could ask. And Dion, you came in, my friend, with this hunger to learn and to understand the game, which I think is one of the main reasons why you're so successful. So I applaud you for that, man.
Well, there is a lot to learn. So one of the things I recommend, taking in content like this, but find your local mastermind. Find the people in your area that are doing something like this. That might even be online if it's not really close to your area. Interact with the people who have done what you're trying to do and the people you're going to interact with. Find contractors, find handyman, find agents, find lenders, talk to other investors, because if you're anything like me, most of the people I know don't invest, think it's gambling, would never, the closest they come to investing is contributing to their retirement account. So it was really important for me to find people who are in this space.
What initially started that, like, even concept in your, like, did you have a friend? Did you read a book? Were you just lucky and you were like, I think this is a good idea?
Yeah, I know your story, Dion. Share your story with us.
The thing that every investor that has reached any kind of success loves to hear. Stacy, you said it. You're just lucky. It just worked out. I was tired of my sources of income being taken away due to things outside of my control. After Desert Storm, the Marine Corps downsized. In 2008, I was a police officer, and during a recession, we all know there's no more crime, so cops get laid off. We don't need cops anymore. And I found myself laid off at the same time as a bunch of qualified officers. So my two paths to retirement that I thought was going to be 20 years in the Marine Corps, retire with a pension, then 20 years in law enforcement, retire with a pension. So if everything worked out, I would have two pensions at the age of 65. Normal American dream. Didn't get either. Found myself at 40 when I was laid off from the police department. Single parent with 3 kids. During the divorce, I found out about, it started out much larger, but I was able to negotiate it down to $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I didn't know existed until the divorce. So that was my starting position. And being laid off from a police department, I found a job driving for a local trucking company here in Washington, doubled my income, thought I'd landed on my feet. Then that company went on strike. So I started teaching truck driving at a truck driving school, making $17 an hour in 2009. Single parent, 3 kids, low income, bad debt to income ratio. Perfect time to start investing in real estate. I had some examples, like you said, Stacy. I have 2 friends. I have a friend who retired with 30 rentals. I don't know if they're paid off or not. But my brother retired with 10 paid off rental properties. And for a long time, I thought my brother was crazy. He was running a tree service, working 10 to 15-hour days. And then he was working on his rentals 5 hours a night. And he used a home equity line of credit to buy very low priced properties, less than $100,000, like a mobile home on acreage that's just falling down. And then he would do all the work like a craftsman, turn it into a really nice looking rental. So running his business, working 5 hours, and I thought he was nuts. Sometimes that looked like a 20-hour day to me. And then at the age of 50, he shut down his business. All of his rentals were paid off. The home equity line of credit was paid off. He had repeated it over and over. And so now he has 10 paid off rentals and he'll never work again in his life. And I was like, oh, how do you do that? Is that a thing? So I started investing around 2010. I started saving to invest. And it took 10 years to get to where I'm at now. So I just actually officially handed in my retirement papers yesterday. I'm not sure the day that this is.
Wow, congratulations.
Holy crap, dude.
July 5th. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It was
where do you work now?
Meeting. I was running the truck driving school. I stayed there. Okay. I got slowly demoted down to president, and I would say technically part owner. I had golden handcuffs. I literally walked away from $2 million golden handcuffs because of how I've invested in real estate, and I don't care.
Wow.
Getting started was difficult, and there's a lot of people who are probably listening. And if you're just starting, you don't have that first rental yet. There are some barriers. You have to look at, how do we work with somebody like Keith and go, how do I borrow money to buy a house when I have bad debt to income ratio and not making a lot of money? And a lender was really nice and kind of educated me, told me. So I owned a house. The one thing I kept custody of the kids through the divorce, but I also kept the house. I moved from my house into an apartment. I took my kids and moved into an apartment. And some people think that's crazy, that your family's the barrier to investing, but to me, they were the motivation.
Mm.
I moved into an apartment and rented out my house because the lender said if you have rental income on your tax returns for 2 consecutive years and you show that you can manage a property, find a tenant, place a tenant, collect rents, pay your bills, that they'll then consider 75% of rental income in your debt to income ratio, even on the property you're purchasing.
Yep.
So my first investment property was a duplex. 2 years after starting, I'd saved my down payment, got the rental income from the house on my tax returns, and I did an owner-occupied purchase of a duplex and moved in, which reduced my living expenses from $1,500 a month in the apartment to $300 a month in the duplex, because the other side covered almost the entire mortgage, allowing me to save the difference. That version of house hacking, kind of like the cheat code to wealth, reducing or eliminating our largest expense. And then I saved again for another 2 years. This was a slow game. The first 5 years feel like they take forever and nothing happens. In 5 years, I saved up 2 down payments and purchased 2 duplexes. So at the end of those first 4 years, I had the house rented out, was house hacking, and purchased another duplex. Right about that time, 4 to 6 years for most people, maybe even a little better if your debt's a little better than what mine looked like, this thing starts to happen that I call the income snowball.
Mm-hmm.
When you start having more sources of income to where your W-2 isn't so important. The house was cash flowing. I reduced my housing expenses, and the 2 duplexes I purchased were cash flowing. And if you guys remember around 2013, 2015, lenders were limiting you to 4 mortgages in your name.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I prefer, all my properties so far are 4 units or less because I like 30-year fixed rate debt. And that was my goal, was to get residential lending. But they were limiting you to 4. So when I got to 4 mortgages.
Sorry, just for the people watching, you mean you were staying away from commercial property when you say 4 or less?
And yes, I wasn't going 5 units or more because of lending. It was really the barrier. And there's arguments for, multifamily scales faster, small multifamily has better lending and less turnover. So whichever one works for you, they're both viable. That's the one that worked with me for the situation I was in.
I love that, Dion. A lot of people just pick one, right? It's like, what works for you and what are your goals? And then you can tailor your plan to whatever you're looking for.
Right. So, I totally agree. The thing that I think is great about real estate is there's no one right way, but there's a one right way for you. You just need to figure out what that one is. And for me, it's small multifamily, buy and hold with the intent of never selling.
So at this point, when both your duplexes are cash flowing, have you been in this now 5, 6 years? What's our timeline we're at?
At about the 5-year point, my duplexes were cash flowing. The single family house, the first year was a nightmare because I had no education. I wasn't listening to podcasts. I didn't listen to any books. I hadn't found.
I remember watching your video on this. You guys have to go watch Dion's video on this. It is hilarious, and your humble message to people, beautiful, man. Just, it's powerful stuff. I'm glad you gave that story. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but once Dion says it, we're going to drop the link to your YouTube channel here too, because you guys need to subscribe, and watch this stuff.
Yeah, the mistake I made that a lot of investors make is I had W-2 income. My idea was work towards pensions. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to work towards pensions anymore. And I'm going to try to replace my W-2 income, which I did. And I thought I would do it with no education. Just jump right in. Like, if you want to go to college to get a degree to work in a field, it takes years. If you want to join the Marine Corps, it's 13-week boot camp and a 6-month academy to become a police officer. But I thought, real estate, I'll just go buy something. And so I rented my house out without a lease, with a handshake, to someone I knew, because you can't trust a stranger. Like, I made every list of mistakes that you can make as an investor. And then I realized what was wrong. That first year was really bad. But I found books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, One Rental at a Time by Michael Zuber, and communities like Bigger Pockets and podcasts like this, where people are sharing their stories and how this all works. Like, I've learned a lot watching podcasts about how an agent should do their job or how a lender does their job. So what matters to them has made it easier for me to interact with them. So the timeline, at about the 5-year mark, since we were allowed to have 4 mortgages, I focused and funneled all the cash flow, anything from overtime. I started to make more money at the truck driving school. I had a couple of silly side hustles. Like, there's a game called World of Warcraft, which is an online game that makes me a nerd.
Oh yeah.
Right the map behind me. But I was playing the game and selling things on eBay. And that was a side hustle. I was making $300 to $500 a month playing an online game. But I funneled all that money and paid off one of the mortgages because my goal was, if they limit us to 4, I'll pay one off and then I'll buy another rental. So as soon as I paid the house off, which greatly increased the cash flow from that property, it's now a paid off single family. It's my only single family, rented to a Section 8 tenant at $2,200 a month. So it's cash flowing really well. Then they raised the limit of mortgages. 2 things happened. Mortgages increased to 10 in your name, and interest rates went from above 6% down to, I was getting 5s in around 2016, 17. To me, that sounded great because it had come down from, I think I had 8 or 9% on my single family house. So now my goal was to get to 10 mortgages in my name, and then probably stop and retire. But I'm only at 6. I have 7 properties with 16 units. And here's the numbers for the math people that are watching. I'm very transparent. I just share on my YouTube channel. I literally bring up spreadsheets. Here's the income. Here's the expenses. Cash flow, pure cash flow. So setting aside for paying principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, setting aside 15%. So 10 for maintenance and repairs, 5% for vacancy. And then I self-manage, so I don't set aside for that, is $14,000 a month off of 7 properties. So it doesn't take 100 units. It doesn't take 100 properties. 7 properties with 16 units. I've done some things to improve cash flow, like in 2020 when interest rates dropped to 3%. I refinanced over half my portfolio.
Everything, I hope.
pretty much everything. Anything that was above 4% got a new rate. The ones there got one at 4 that I didn't touch. And then there are things we can do to increase the rent. One of the things that makes my strategy very successful and simple is I found all my deals on the MLS. So I'm not using seller financing. I'm not using creative driving for dollars or sending mailers. I literally have got auto searches set up on the MLS. I've used traditional lending. These are all conventional loans. Some were from Wells Fargo, then went to Guild Mortgage, and I've hunted around for lenders. So there's no secret sauce. It's just slow, rinse and repeat, save a down payment, buy a rental, 1 rental at a time, literally like out of the playbook from 1 rental at a time. This talks about getting to 4 properties, your life changes. I totally agree with that. And with the cash flow of my current rentals, I was able to actually turn in my retirement yesterday. And a lot of people talk about, the stress of leaving the W-2, knowing you don't have that income. And I don't suggest doing that until you have several years of rental income on your tax return so that you're still bankable to get the next mortgage. But I had no worries about income because I have a diversified portfolio. My properties are more than 10 miles apart, close to different economic drivers like the base, the port, college, hospitals, different sources of tenants. I diversify the tenant base. I have about 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. So literally the type of tenants that I have are even diversified. So money isn't a concern. Healthcare is not a concern. A lot of people think I can't retire because I need to get healthcare. Well, you're paying for it now. You're paying your portion and the employer's paying the other portion. When you retire, you just pay both of those. So you need an asset. I have a duplex that I call the vehicle duplex. Then I have the healthcare duplex, and then I have the food and travel duplex. So you have an asset for every expense. So that wasn't the concern. The hardest thing for me was making sure I wasn't leaving a void at the company I've been working at for 12 years. I physically grew this company from 6 staff to 60, was demoted all the way down to president of the company. And I had to leave in such a way where I know I trained the staff to replace me, where nothing's going to be missed. That was the stress for me, not the retiring or how it's going to impact me, because I don't want to say it's easy because it took 10 years. 10 years of focusing, thinking, I'm not going to increase my lifestyle for at least 5 years. Those first 5 years, lived fairly frugally, but financial freedom for me didn't happen because I was frugal. Like in 2017, I started going with vehicles. Before 2017, I had 15-year-old cars, old Jeep, like things I could work on myself. But in 17, I got a Ford Raptor. 18, I got a Corvette. 19, it was a Tundra pickup, jacked up. Now I drive what I call the compensator. It literally says the compensator across the tailgate because it's such a jacked up truck. That doesn't happen in the first 5 years. But after the income snowball kicks in, we can actually start enjoying life, or retiring to enjoy life.
Can I ask, you said Seattle. So you're local. So this is a rough market. It's not like you're doing this somewhere else. I don't even want to say other states, but it's expensive. You're a coastal market and you're still succeeding. So I think this is something, if people really learn from you, they could emulate what you're doing anywhere if you can do it in the Seattle market.
Well, the thing that makes it really effective is house hacking. Reducing or eliminating that largest expense is more important in an expensive market. I have a friend who lives in Seattle. He's a state trooper. He has his YouTube channel, Millennial Mike. He house hacks a duplex here because of high cost of living, but he invests in Gary, Indiana. So he invests at a distance, but still house hacks locally. All of my properties are within an hour's drive. So I'm between Tacoma and Olympia here in Washington State. I have gone and studied other markets. I have friends I'm helping invest in Florida where I was actually able to find better deals. Because you guys talked at the intro to the show about interest rates and what they're doing and where they're at historically. And interest rates is 1/3 of the equation. We have rates, rents, price. And price can change. You might find the motivated seller that has to sell. So you have some negotiating power there. And rates, banks lend on margin. So what the Fed does then affects what the lenders do. So there are times when the Fed can raise rates and the banks might even lower it because they increased it too much last month. So watching rates is important, but what's been happening with rents? Like we've seen record rent increase. And here's the reason why my strategy works. And this is the thing that usually gets me invited onto other podcasts is I have a strategy that gets my tenants to request a rent increase. My tenants ask me,
wow,
hey, Dion, can we please increase the rent by this last year? It was between 20 and 28%. So $300 to $500 across the board. And when I acquiesce and say, I will agree to that, they thank me and are happy. Happy tenants don't leave and happy tenants don't trash your place. So since I have a strategy that keeps the tenants happy and gets them to ask me to raise the rent, it's been actually pretty easy to find cash flowing deals right on the MLS. And I'm trying to share that strategy with as many people as possible because it gives landlords a better name if you're not raising the rent to the point where they have to just move or they just hate you because you raise the rent. But if you can have a tenant that's happy at the end of a conversation where their rent increases, that's good for both sides.
Yes. What is the secret?
What's the strategy? What's the strategy?
Sounds good.
So this strategy is called, and you can Google this just go to Google or go to YouTube and search up the binder, like a 3-ring binder. It's physically done with a 3-ring binder. It can work. I've done it through email. It works on Section 8. So it works on the housing authority too. A lot of tenants live in fear of their property being sold. And if somebody buys the property, the new owner has a new expense and they're just going to raise the rent or they're going to kick them out so they can do a rehab and get market rents, which is logically the best thing for the new owner is I want to buy a vacant place so I can fix it up and get current rents.
Yep.
I'm lazy. Super lazy. Like one of the reasons I wanted to reach financial freedom is so that at 52 yesterday, I can go, hey, I'm retired and I don't have to work ever again in my life. Lazy was a powerful motivator. But I also don't want to displace a tenant. I don't want to be that jerk that buys a place and says, hey, you got to go, right? Most tenants don't live where, a lot of people, tenants or owners, doesn't matter, live paycheck to paycheck, don't have a deposit, don't have the funds to move, don't want to change school districts for their kids. Like all the chaos that's created when somebody just buys a house and forces a move. So I prefer to buy already occupied properties. I have bought some that were just rent ready, but I prefer to buy with the tenant in place because usually that's an owner that wants to exit. They're usually above 60 or 70. They've owned for a long time. This is their retirement. They want to sell and, right off into the sunset. So they haven't taken care of the place for a while. They haven't raised the rents for a while. So the tenants know the place is kind of run down. They're getting a great deal on their rents, but they know if somebody buys, they're going to get kicked out. So they haven't looked at what it takes to buy a property. A lot of tenants aren't buyers. A lot of people don't want to buy. They haven't looked at what prices are. They don't know what interest rates are. They don't know what it would take to go rent another place because the last time they moved into when they moved into this, which might have been, I have tenants that were there 16 years when I bought the place. They haven't even thought of renting a place in over a decade.
Holy cow.
So I educate them. I make a 3-ring binder, and that's why we call it the binder. The first page is an image of the property. And the first thing I share with the tenants, they don't care about. But I'm being transparent with information they can find online anyways. The image of the property is from Redfin or Zillow or whatever platform you use that shows the price I paid, which they're going to find online in a month anyways, or the Zestimate or Zillow, estimate of what the property value is. And I explain, this is the property I just purchased. Here's what I paid. And if they've lived there for a long time, I'll say, here's the estimate that the county tax assessor is going to use for my taxes and for my insurance on replacement value. These are the numbers I'm working with. Tenants don't care about your expenses. The next page is a picture from apartments.com or Redfin or Zillow of all the rentals, the actual map of the pinpoints of the rentals that are for rent in the area that have the same number of units or amenities. So if you have a garage, they have a garage. If you have 2 bedrooms, it's 2 bedrooms. You're not showing 3 or 4. You're showing exactly the same type of unit that you're renting. If it's a house, I do house. If I do duplex, I do duplex or townhouse, or something where you have shared walls. And I say, these are all the rentals in the area. And then every page after that is an actual printout of those rentals. How many bedrooms, what they're renting for, to educate the tenant on what the current rents are in the area. If they have to move, they decide they don't want to stay in this unit and they want to move, this is what you'll be paying in this area. I slide the binder to the tenant, because what tenant's ever been involved in this conversation? Normally we're just told as a renter, here's your rent.
0.
I slide the binder to them and I ask, what's that, Stacey?
I was going to say, this is amazing.
So I slide the binder to them and I ask them, what do you think would be fair? So here's an example. I did the binder strategy. Normally I do it when I purchase a property, and then after that it's just a 5% increase every other year. And that's kept me fine. But in 2021, because of the pandemic in 2020, when rents were frozen, you couldn't evict, all these things happen, 2021 rents skyrocketed. So I did this strategy with existing tenants across the board. There were tenants that were paying $1,150 and $1,175. I showed them comps in the area at $1,500 to $1,600. $1,650 were some really high-end ones. So the units your size, 2 bedrooms in this area, are renting for $1,500 to $1,600. You're paying $1,150. What do you think would be fair? If I came to that tenant and said, hey, everything costs more, I'm going to raise your rent $200, they would probably be upset.
Right.
You just said my rent's going up $200. But when I show, if you moved, it's going to be $1,500 or $1,600. You have the cost of moving. You have to find a place. If you stay, I don't have to do a rehab. So I know you're not going to go to 15 or 16. That's what I would get if you moved out, right? What do you think would be fair? Both tenants went to $1,460. So they asked for over a $300 increase to their rent and were happy because they were involved in the conversation. They knew what the options were if they decided not to stay. They know I'm not getting the best deal. They know they're not getting the best deal. A compromise is when both sides lose a little, but they don't have to move. I don't have to do a rehab. I do take care of the place, fix things up. One of the first things I do when I acquire a new property is I replace the locks with coated locks. I put in motion sensor LED lights, and I ask the tenant if there's anything that they would like to have fixed that I didn't find in the inspection. Mm-hmm. And usually it's really small things like we would like a screen door or fix the ceiling fan. It's nothing big, but I do that. So I take care of the place. Tenants are happy. I've used this with Section 8 in Thurston County. Section 8 told me we'll pay $1,800 for your 3-bedroom place, and that's it. And I said, well, here's some emails of all the 3 bedrooms in this exact same area that are renting for $2,300 and $2,400. And I would like to go to 22. And they said, sure. So even for a government authority that had a set price for rents, they said, no, you've done our work for us. You've shown us what the current area average is on real examples that are for rent now. And you're not even going to that. So they went to that. So I've got that rented at $2,200 now because of some emails.
I have a question on your Section 8, because I have another friend that does that in Thurston County. Maybe you both know the answer to this. Is there something specific about Section 8 in Thurston County, or does that work in any county? Are they easier to work with in Thurston, or is it just by chance that you're both doing this in the same county?
I will be transparent. Each county is run by either a housing authority that's specific to that county or a nonprofit that works in that county. So with my YouTube channel, I work with people across the country. Thurston County, I love it. They're responsive. They reply to emails. They will negotiate the price like that. If I provided the proof, I can't get an answer to an email within a year at Pierce County. So I'm about half in Thurston, half in Pierce. I would never do a Section 8 property in Pierce County because of the agency, not because of the program. The program's great, but you need to find the right people doing the job. And in Thurston County, it seems like they just care. I don't know what the difference is, but that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Well, the housing authority would be no different than any other vendor that you're relying on, right?
Correct. Except they're a vendor that has no competition.
Right. That's a very good point.
So to continue so I'm curious how the binder conversation occurred during COVID when they didn't have to pay rent. Sounds like you didn't have that concern or issue, but what helped you with that?
So I didn't do the binder strategy during 2020.
Okay.
because of there was an eviction moratorium and a rent freeze. And I think in 2020, I purchased a fourplex in January that I'm house hacking. I'm being paid $2,500 a month to live here. That doesn't suck. And then 2020 hit, the pandemic hit. So I didn't do the binder strategy at this fourplex until 2021. A tenant did a binder strategy on me during 2020. I started fixing the place. Every little thing I could do, the lights and the locks and everything. The tenants came over and they said, "Hey, we're really scared. We're on month to month, and we're afraid you're going to fix the place up and kick us out. If we raise the rent," and this was my smallest binder strategy ever, but it was being done to me. They said, "If we raise the rent $155 a month, would you do a 1-year lease with us?" So that happened in 2020, but it's kind of backwards to what I normally do. But in 2021, I did the binder strategy across the board because the moratorium had been lifted, and rents went crazy. And I don't know if people have really paid attention to this, and this is just my opinion, wages set rents. Wages set prices. Home buyers buy based on payment. Wages set how much they can pay. Renters buy based on payment. Demand is higher because people can move out of cities and work from home now because of the pandemic. So there's more demand for rentals. And we're seeing record wage inflation. One of the things I do is I run this nonprofit that I founded that does job placement assistance for non-driving jobs with trucking companies. So admin, HR, IT, operations, dispatch. If you're looking for a job, check us out, hiddenjobs.org. And we do that for free. But people right now aren't getting the wage that people talk about in the news. The news says, you're getting a 5 to 7% wage increase across the board is what we're seeing. But what we're experiencing is called the Great Resignation. Mm-hmm. Over 4 million people per month for the last 12 months have quit their job, but unemployment is under 4%, which means people aren't quitting their jobs and sitting at home on unemployment. They're quitting their jobs to change companies. And when you change companies, you're getting an average of 15 to 20% increase to your pay instead of that 5 to 7 if you stay working for the same company. And that record wage inflation is impacting rents. Using the binder strategy on my tenants across the board, it was 20 to 28% increase to rents at tenants' request, and they're all below area average rents. I could make more money if I kicked tenants out, did a flip, did a rehab, did all the work, displaced a tenant, did what people usually talk about with real estate. But instead, have the conversation. Right. I'm making enough money to actually be able to take care of the properties and fix things when they break and not have to work.
When we haven't even talked about your kids, they must, you are teaching them so much by them being able to watch what their dad did to support them and retire. And you have just created a lifetime legacy for your family. That's incredible.
I think the best thing for my kids is it went from, I thought I was going to work until I died. So at some point I would become a burden in my 70s or 80s, to now they will inherit millions. And hopefully, here's a life hack for you. I could never talk to my kids about finances. I pretty much made it to 40 without ever having $1,000 in the bank. I didn't understand money, right? But when I started investing and started realizing the path to financial freedom isn't difficult, it just takes commitment. And I got there. Make a YouTube channel. Do 10-minute little videos teaching people how this works. My son will come to me and ask me questions about a concept that I had to research for 3 days to make the video on. He went to college, got a degree, racked up like $54,000 in student loan debts. But in the last 2 years, because of, I want to take some ownership of this, because of my YouTube channel and helping people understand finances, he's completely eradicated all of the debt. So he's debt free, and him and his wife are saving for their first duplex. So they have about a 10-year plan to reproduce what I've done.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. One of the greatest gifts we can give our children is that financial education. What they do with it is completely up to them, right? But to enable them to see that and empower them, that's so awesome, Dion. Wow. I want to go back really quick and talk to one thing that you just mentioned. I think so often investors get into that mindset and they see, because I think there's a lot of cost per click campaigns and what have you about people that are burring and finding, fixing, and then renting and then repeating it. And that's a lot for people, right? So to hear you come on and share your story, just, I don't want to like mitigate your commitment to it, but you went from it from like, okay, how can I do this with the minimal effort and get the maximum return and still come out way ahead? That's so great. So my question for you, now that you're retired officially, right? Where do you go from here?
So there's a YouTube channel called, and it's just the guy's name. His name is Joe Kuhn, Kuhn. I only found him a few months ago as I was approaching retirement. You start to look for things in your feed that sound like retirement. He retired at 54. He's been retired for 4 years now, and he used the stock market investing with the bucket strategy. So not real estate, very different than what I've done. But he had to deal with what are the roadblocks to retiring before the normal age, and what does that look like, and how do you handle it? So I've been watching his content, and one thing I really like from his content is retire to something, not from something. Yeah. So a lot of people, if you reach financial freedom and you hate your job, quit, get out of there, right? I reached financial freedom in 2018, could have retired, never had to work again in my life, but I love my job, like what we do. I get to help people. I get to play in semis like they're a go-kart, good simulators to play in. I get to help people find jobs. It's like a fun job. At this point, time freedom wins out. And so I'm retiring for time freedom, not because I didn't like the job. Love the company, love the coworkers, love the owners. It was great. Gonna miss it. And here's what I'm retiring to. And this is very selfish, but let's see if I can get this out and keep all emotion out of my face.
Emotion's okay.
I don't know if I can get it all out if I get emotional. 10 years ago, I was broke. Like I had massive bad debt, wasn't making a lot, wasn't sure how to provide for kids. They were going to be coming up to college age and how do you even prepare for that? 10 years later, bad debt free, work's optional, can retire anytime I want. I'm not going to be a burden to my kids. They're going to inherit me. It's all within 10 years. Imagine the emotional experience of going, okay, so life sucks. And 10 years later, this is the life I didn't know I could have, right? I can only do that once. Mm-hmm. I can only experience going from trapped to financial freedom once. And I'm not stupid. I'm not going to give everything away and start over. And so I can do it again and feel it again, right? But every person who reaches out or comes to my YouTube channel, I do live streams every Tuesday at 4 p.m. and I go until the questions stop. Every person that I help reach financial freedom, I get to experience that again. So if somebody reaches out with, hey, explain their strategy, look at their market, tell them, whatever I can help with to make their thing do. I don't charge for coaching. I'm just trying to help people. It's for very selfish reasons. I'm retiring to being able to share what I've done for the last 10 years with as many people as I can. That's what I don't know what it's going to look like. I think it's going to be a book at some point. It's going to be more YouTube content. It's going to be inviting more people to masterminds so they can get involved with other people that are doing this. That's what's next for me.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm looking forward to that. So last question in closing, where was the cruise to, man? You just got back from a cruise.
It's funny. I made it to 48 without ever taking a vacation. And then since in the last 4 years, I've spent a month in Colombia, a month in Thailand. Me and my brothers drove around the United States for a month, just literally went off to see the country. Then I took my first cruise last week, went to Alaska. It was great. Perfect weather, no rain the whole trip. Everywhere we went, the people that lived there were shocked. They were like, I can't believe you're here on a nice day. It's never like this, but it was the whole trip. I'm not saying that was the reason, but it was a contributing factor to me coming back and saying, I retire. And what's great about this is I have my friend, Michael Zuber. I've got to know him because he's got his YouTube channel, One Rental at a Time, in his book, and I'm narrating his next book for Audible.
Cool.
Well, you have a
I appreciate. I'm hoping
narration.
It sounds better than the robot voices that sometimes Audible uses. Michael Zuber talks about he went into work one day at 8:00 and thought he was going to continue working for another 5 years. I think he was like 45 or 46. He was going to work till 50. But the boss piled a bunch of stuff on it. He was a manager of a division, and his boss gave him stuff he didn't want to deal with. And he says, I told you I don't want to do this. And they said, well, too bad. You're going to do it. 8:45, he walked out, never went back. Like he had such a bad day that he quit. Mine's almost literally the exact opposite. Our company, the commercial driver school, was dealing with a problem for 2 months with a state agency where we were being targeted. They were literally, it was somebody basically trying to shut the company down. And so I was saying, while this is an issue, whoa, I'm not even thinking of retiring. I'm not putting that on anybody else's plate. Finally had a meeting yesterday and got resolution. Got the government agency to understand what we were doing, to see that there was no problem. And literally they came around to our side of how can we support this? Because we now see what you're doing. Such a victory, right? Like home run. I retire. Instead of I've had such a bad day, I'm out of here. I've had a great day. This is a great day to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. And I just read an article about actually people who are lazy, give them the hardest problem to solve, and they will come up with the best way to do it. So I appreciate that you're lazy, because it's amazing, right? What you can accomplish and get done and teach others. And I mean, you're obviously not lazy, but I thought it just reminded me of the article I read. So.
Well, it had to be easy to work for me because I understand my lazy. You're right. If you want to find the easiest way to do something, ask a lazy person. They'll show you. Yeah.
They're like, give the hardest job to a lazy person. We'll get a good solution. Yeah.
Right. So if you're asking, how would you retire in 10 years to where you never have to work again? People will come up with, well, if you do the BRRRR strategy, you can do 2 or 3 every month and recycle your capital. And if you're flipping, you can generate a large amount of capital too. I bought one property in 2 years, and then one property 2 years later. And then a little faster and a little faster as the money built up. And I didn't do anything different other than just keep letting the money build up. The hardest switch for me now that I'm retiring, right? I have no idea how to spend money. I just going on the cruise. I came back with more money than I left with.
Right. Hey, that's a good cruise. There you go. Right on. Well, Dion, thank you so much for joining us, man. I mean, you never cease to inspire me. So I appreciate you for that. And I wouldn't call you lazy. I would call you an effective guy. I think you're very effective in getting to where
it wasn't a negative article. You got to give it to lazy smart people, not lazy unsmart people. But as long as they're smart, they're going to figure out a good way to get things done. I think it's brilliant. I'm going to try it.
Nice. Well, I understand that a lot of people are lazy like me, but I would like to ask everybody this tiny little favor. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, I want you to go to Real Estate Now, leave a 5-star review, actually write a few words on what you thought so that this will be shared with more people who can reach financial freedom and learn from what we're putting together here.
Yes, thank you, Dion.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And vice versa, we'll have all your information for financial freedom and your Dion Talks as well. So the awesome thing is if you just go use that free information, you can be set for yourself. So thanks again, Dion, and thanks everybody for joining us today on Real Estate Now. We will catch you next month and look forward to seeing you in the meantime.
Take care.
Take care.